So one of the most highly anticipated witnesses in the impeachment inquiry testifies publicly today. The White House is reportedly uneasy about America's EU ambassador Gordon Sondland's expected testimony because they consider it unpredictable. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Laura Cooper and Undersecretary of State Ambassador David Hale will also be testifying. CBS News legal analyst Kim Wehle joins me now from Washington. So, Kim, it's going to be a big day because the ambassador to the EU is really the only one we've heard from so far who had direct contact with the president. What do we expect for today?
Well, to your point, yesterday we heard from Kurt Volker, whose testimony seemed to suggest that his experience with the president was that the president was in general sort of down on Ukraine, that he had sort of a negative view of Ukraine, and that might be why he withheld the military aid, which of course is critical in the quid pro quo narrative. Mr. Sondland, we know, on at least 2 occasions spoke specifically with the president about Ukraine. So he is in a position to basically rebut that narrative, the idea that there was some innocent reason why the president treated Ukraine as he did, versus if Mr. Sondland testifies, as some expect, that the reason that the aid was withheld was in order to get the Ukrainians to publicly announce investigations into a political rival. That will take one of the key defenses off the table for Republicans. That is, that the president didn't mean it.
So, you know, we already have seen Sondland say that his memory has been refreshed and he's, altered his testimony once so far. We haven't even heard his take on this alleged conversation that happened at a restaurant in Ukraine on a cell phone between him and the president. So we don't even know what he's going to say about that. The fact that he's already changed his testimony, does that make him, I don't know, an unreliable witness or problematic one? Let's say that, problematic.
Sure. I mean, that question is really in the eye of the beholder. And in this moment, the jurors are the Senate, members of the Senate, and their constituents. So it will really come down to the American people watching Mr. Sondland. Definitely the fact that he's changed his testimony in a way that is quite unusual, in a really dramatic fashion, would suggest that he's comfortable potentially making statements under oath that aren't entirely accurate. On the other hand, someone could look at his testimony and say, well, now he's finally coming clean. Now he's more reliable. He's more believable because he's actually coming forward with testimony that's potentially damaging to the president in an environment where we know with this particular president, a lot of people within the government and definitely within the Congress understand that any negative statements about the president are going to come back to haunt them on Twitter, and in the Congress could mean actually losing a seat or being primaried, so to speak, so that their political future could be harmed by virtue of not being in lockstep with this president. So that's why people are calling some of these witnesses brave, courageous heroes, because it's certainly not going to sit well with this president. And he has, like no one else on the planet, tremendous power to affect people's professional futures.
Yeah. In this case, though, we have, somebody who's going to be testifying who's independently wealthy himself, almost sort of rivaling the president in terms of his success in the hotel business.
Sure, that's why he got this position. He donated $1 million to the inaugural committee. Most of us can't do that and make our way into an ambassadorship.
Definitely. So yesterday we heard the word bribery, a bit of a shift from the term quid pro quo. Does that make a difference? Do the two terms mean anything different?
So quid pro quo is a Latin term that means favor for a favor. It is not a legal term. And of course, in impeachment, we don't need to see an actual crime being proven. Bribery is mentioned itself in the Constitution. And historically, what the framers were worried about was a foreign government influencing the president. Even if it's not a hostile foreign government, think France influencing King Charles. The framers were worried about essentially a president getting favors from a foreign government and then taking actions that are not consistent with what's best for America. And here, of course, the issue is that if the president did ask for an investigation into the Bidens in exchange, essentially, for release of military aid. It's well established, and there's no contrary narrative to the fact that that's not good for America. What's good for America was democracy in Ukraine, was the military aid being released. So if the president took actions for his own personal power to ensure or to maximize his chances of winning in 2020, that would be, I think, of concern within the meaning of bribery under the Constitution, because it's not in the best interest of America. It would be in his own personal best interest. And that is squarely something that I think the framers were worried about, and would justify at least the impeachment inquiry that we're in, even if the Senate does not remove him from office at trial.
All right, Kim, always great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Sure, Anne Marie. Thank you.